Hello, everybody. This is Scott McDonald, and I want to welcome you to our weekly webinar. Today's topic is going to be a little surprising to people because it's not considered often a demographic issue or site selection issue. And I want to talk to you about choosing the right partners or partner to work with. Now, I bring this up because here's the thing. When we talk about where's the perfect place to put a practice, and here at drdemographics.com, that's what we do. A lot of people get the impression that all you're looking for is a place where there are no competitors or very few, and that there's significant growth and the demographic character of the place is fantastic. But they kind of forget the fact that your personality, your background, and the backgrounds of the doctors will make a tremendous difference as to the viability of your practice site. So as I say, I have found it to be genuinely true that if you are selective in choosing people who are going to attract those people who you are not likely to attract, you're going to do better. Now, when I was just a very young man, I was working for the California Dental Association, and I was helping to figure out why some places were doing really, really well and others were just sucking hose water. It was an issue that they actually asked me to research and write about. And that's kind of where I got the idea of doing drdemographics.com. I would go back and say, what are the factors that matter? And it was surprising how often the issue came back to the doctor seems to be someone I relate to. It's what I like. Now, at first we thought, well, that's because of their personality. Now, you can't measure personality. You genuinely have to say, well, personality is a good thing, but it's not the only thing about people. Okay. Now, I bring that up because there are some people who are young and some people that are old. And we often will say that a characteristic, a demographic factor about the doctor will make them right for an area. And okay, I'll go back. This does go a long way back into the 80s. We were finding that there was a difference in gender. Some people liked male doctors and some people liked female doctors. And they thought, oh, well, if I just had a doctor who was like me, they would relate better. But we found that it was much deeper than simply gender. We found that if you had a doctor who was of the right ethnic group, race, nation of origin, language group, people were really excited. You may have heard of the Armenian population in Southern California. It's quite a large and active population. It's not, however, very well spread out. They tend to cluster within a fairly narrow area, primarily in the San Joaquin Valley. That's actually not entirely true, but let's just say that there are clusters of places where the Armenians were very popular. People of that background, culture, language group, and if the doctor fit within that, it's fantastic. It became more, when we were looking at the Armenians, than just language. We also found that if they are of the same religion or are meeting with people of a particular subset of the population, I won't get too deep into that with the Armenians, but there are different groups. The same thing was true of the Hmong population. Believe it or not, it makes a difference if you're Hmong and you happen to be of the same clan that they're with. So when we started figuring out what made a doctor fit well with the area that he was in, we also began to notice that if you had a partner who wasn't ideally the same ethnicity, you had a wider or broader reach. And so it became a pretty important fact that if you chose a partner or a staff that was going to fit the population with whom you were working or trying to attract, you'd do much, much better. How well you as doctors and staff relate to the population mattered a great deal. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and share my screen, and I will get more into this topic. I'm calling it choosing the right partner for demographic and strategic wisdom. And that's really the idea, because if you're going to choose a partner, there are certain factors about them that are going to matter. But it is much, much more than simply saying, are they going to be in the right language group, ethnicity, whatever. Incidentally, just to let you know, this is a much more complex issue than we might think. Some people think, for example, oh, Hispanics, they're really a growing population. That's what everybody wants. But you may be surprised to find out that Salvadoranians, Mexicans, and Guatemalans don't all have the same sound to them or ethnic background. And so finding a guanaco, chapin, would matter a lot if that's the group that you're trying to reach. So yes, it does make a difference if you're choosing the right partner to be able to strategically go after the people you're trying to reach. Now, at Dr. Demographics, we're all about knowing where to move, start a business or practice, promote your efforts, and we're really all about the where issues. So that being said, let's talk about what the right partner is likely to be. This is a demographic choice, not just a fact the person went to dental school with you and happened to share a doctor or a lab with you. It's a strategic choice. And I want you to think in terms of who you've got right now in your practice. Now, before I go too much further, the majority of practices right now are group practices. That has changed a little bit. In some places, groups are much more the norm. Partnerships are definitely a way to take advantage of having space within your office, and it will tend to reduce your overhead. If you're using chairs and equipment and you're lengthening out the time that you're able to serve patients, you're probably going to do much better. That's because you're more cost effective. But having the right partner can be a challenge, particularly if that partner is going to be underfoot all the time or is going to have conflicting priorities with you. So it will change the locations that you're able to serve. Now, ultimately, here's one of the big important things. What you don't want is someone who has exactly the same character you do, the same background. You want to find diversity. Someone with different goals and aspirations is not what you want. But finding someone who fits a demographic character that's different from you is a good idea. You do not ever want someone who is too needy. And now this is going to be odd, but one of the services that Mike and I offer is we will meet with doctors online when they're trying to establish a marketing plan or a relationship with each other. Who should we choose? We've got 3 doctors in our group right now. Who should our 4th be? What kind of person should they be? Not just their clinical expertise, but do they fill the marketing niche, so to speak? If you find someone who is too needy, often they're not willing to share very much. And there are some people who are not good as partners for that reason. Someone with flexible morality and standards is a definite no-go. I don't care how talented they are. I don't care if their dad was the mayor of the town that you happen to be in. You've got to find someone with really solid character. If you don't trust the person you're working with, you're in trouble. I'll talk about it more in just a second. But again, you don't want to find someone who is just like you. Now, here's an odd thing. When people meet up, they're often looking at professional school and medical school, dental school, whatever their residency was, and they found someone who they feel compatible with. That's terrific. But that can be a disadvantage if they're the same age as you, if they would naturally serve the same population exactly. I brought up the idea of religion. If you have someone who fits your religion, great. They have your same values, fantastic. But sometimes it will limit the range of people who you can attract. I'm not going to go too much more into that, except to simply leave it at this. Finding someone too much like you with the same demographic background can be a disadvantage. I have also found that there are plenty of nuts in the world. Those people who are troubled have difficult times, borderline personality, you know what I'm talking about? Not only if they have flexible morality and standards, do you not want them, but also there are just some people who have issues. Drop them like a bad habit and do it today. I never want you to have someone who has never known trouble. This may sound weird, but there are some people who you are going to have to try to be in business with, and the more experience in life they have, the better. If they're not exactly your same age, maybe of a different ethnic group, language group, age group, that actually helps you. So the variety is a benefit. But I never want you to be with someone who doesn't know what it is to be challenged in life. And there are some people who get into professional schools and programs and residencies who've never really had to struggle for anything. Not a good choice. Now, what you need from a partner, your greatest strengths will often be your differences. But what it means is there may be procedures, there may be types of patients each of you will tend to serve. Therefore, divide them up. I've also found that if you're in a practice with multiple locations, you'll find one or two doctors in your group who may do very well in a particular area and do very badly in another area. That's because the demographics and psychographics of the population you're trying to serve varies location to location. So therefore, one of the things that Mike and I often do is we will say, well, you've got a person who you want to have in your group. Where should they be working? Who should they be trying to attract? And that's a marketing issue. It's something that we think can really help keep people happy and make them do well. But if they're not the right person for that location, for that population they're serving, it can be a very bad day. Sincere honesty can be painful. So you want people who are honest, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be a suck-up. It also means that they have to be honest. Sometimes the best thing a partner can do is to say, it's not a good idea, we shouldn't do that. I learned early on when I was working in healthcare that when two people do not agree, when two people always agree, one of them isn't doing their job. So it is a good thing to have just a little bit of tension so that you're keeping yourself honest and challenging yourselves in places that otherwise you wouldn't. I believe actually it may be painful, but it's vital. If you can't trust your partner, it's time to split up. Anytime that you think your partner may be skimming, maybe not, well, let's just say there are lots of ways that you can cheat within a partnership. If you don't trust the person, you can't watch a person often enough to really make them honest. I think as soon as you have doubts, time to figure your exit strategy in the partnership. Staff, spouses, vendors, and patients should never prevail when it comes to your partnership. There's always going to be a third party who's going to come between you. You have to remember the person who you have chosen as a partner is like a spouse, not like a girlfriend or a boyfriend. These are people who are going to be with you for the long term, and you absolutely have to be able to trust them. If you can't, well, anyway, never let anything get between you. Now, I just want to say this. There's a service we offer that's a little difficult to define, and I'll refer to it as a telephone consultation. There are subjects that we get on with our doctors that don't have an easy definition. It's not just on where do we go or which of these two locations is best. You have to be able to say, given our demographics, our psychographics, our plans for the future, what's the best choice? And the telephone consultation may be your best choice for that. I want to say something about Mike, who I'm afraid has gone off and handled one of our great clients. Look, I trust Mike entirely. It doesn't mean that he and I always agree. I can tell you we don't. I'm much older than he is, and I have a different background from him, but I trust him. which is wise. And I ask him a lot of questions, and he asks me a lot of questions. So we have a productive relationship. If you're trying to figure out where to put a practice and you are taking into account the people with whom you're working, how well are they going to work in that place? Having an objective third party who is not going to be taking money from either of you based upon who I like or don't like, I think that may be a valuable choice for you to make, a better circumstance for you as you grow within the practice. Now, just to reiterate the point, you're going to have to consider at some time who you can trust within your practice. As practices become more and more complex, and they are becoming more complex, you got to keep that in mind. Who can I trust implicitly? How can we work together so that we're working to our strengths? What can we do to grow our overall efforts to take advantage of the fact that we're not the same person? I want to thank all of you for listening and watching. I look forward to working with any of you. Please let us know how we might be able to help. The telephone consultation is, well, not very expensive. You can go to drdemographics.com for all of our products and services, and you might notice in the drop-down menus, prices are all listed right there, and we usually have a little video in which we're explaining what the heck is going on. Thank you very much, and I look forward to helping you in the future. Take care.